Hello! Okay, first of all, before we jump into things, I need to know, do I have any other Bad Omens fans in this video here? Because if so, I need to know your thoughts about Concrete Jungle, the official soundtrack. Please drop them below. Came out last week and it's all I listened to this entire weekend. And I need someone to talk about it with. I'm really bad about checking my comment section, but please, if you are a fan and have been listening, please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I would love to chat about it. But let's get into everything that I read in May. I will be bold as to say that May was my best reading month almost ever, I'd say. At least, I want to say probably since like 2020, 2021. I had banger after banger after banger. Talking a lot in this video about the Legacy of God series by Rena Kemp because I read 4 of the 5 books this month, and I had a reread of a favorite, found another new favorite of the year. I just had a lot of great books that I read this month, so I'm very excited to talk about them. So yeah, also excuse my voice a little bit. I am still getting over a cold and being sick, so I sound a little rough, but we're gonna get through it because I need to talk about Legacy of Gods. But first up, let's start with the first book that I read this month, which is my other favorite besides Legacy of Gods, and that is Shattered Obsession by Tina Spencer. So I've already talked about this book, I think, in a previous video. I think it was in like my favorite books of the year because this quickly became a favorite book of the year. So this one is a dark brother's best friend hockey romance. So our heroine in this one, she has been hooking up with her boss at her job, and he is a piece of garbage and basically decides, when people start talking, he decides to relocate her, hi Dorian, to their New York office. So she ends up having to move out there, and when she does, she moves in with her older brother, who she used to be pretty close to. They've kind of drifted apart a little bit over the years, but he is in real estate and he owns this high-end apartment building that he has the top penthouse floor in, and she ends up moving in with him, and some of his other friends also live in the building as well, including our hero, who has been a best friend of her brother's since they were kids. And our hero is a very well-known and successful hockey player. However, he has a bit of a reputation and a bit of an image, and his coach is starting to be like, you need to kind of clean your shit up, because just because you're talent on the ice, that's not gonna like make excuses anymore for your actions off of the ice. And when the little sister shows up, he is like not happy about it because she is very off limits. Like, the brother has made it known that she is off limits and he knows that. He has had feelings for her, she has also had feelings for him. However, they kind of like hate each other because of it, because they know they need to like stay away from each other. However, what our heroine does not know, but our hero does know, is that they actually shared a bit of a masked encounter night years ago that neither of them have been able to stop thinking about. However, our hero hasn't been able to stop thinking about it because it's her and he is obsessed with her, but she has no idea that the masked man that she has been dreaming about for years since is her brother's best friend. It's the first book in a duet. It does end on a cliffhanger. The second book comes out this month in June. I cannot wait. I'll be reading that as soon as it comes out. Very highly anticipating it. I love it. This also turns into a little bit of fake dating. There is obviously hockey in it, but it's not super sports romance heavy, so if you're not into that, that's okay. Like, this is still a good option. And also, it does have some BDSM in it as well. I loved literally everything about this book. I loved the slow burn of their attraction and like their relationship with each other. I love like the histories. I love quite literally everything. I don't have a single complaint about this book. I cannot wait for book 2, and I can't recommend it enough. Next up, because I wanted a novella, I read Brutal Titan by Evie Rose. So this one is a hockey enemies to lovers novella. So this one follows 2 rival hockey players, and they are at this hotel for like a tournament weekend or whatever, and it is very well known that their schools like hate each other. They're like in college, and that their universities like hate each other, the teams like haze each other, whatever, and these 2 are like known to be rival enemies on and off the ice. And however, though, then when they're staying at the same hotel for the weekend and they're kind of like messing with each other back and forth, lines end up getting blurred, and that line between love and hate is extremely thin, as these 2 find out. And yeah, it's basically just a novella of these 2 rivals getting together. Let me tell you, this was fun. It was quick. It was exactly what I needed. I love the hate to love. I loved the touch him and I'll kill you vibes. Yeah, it was crazy. It had like some plot twists in it that I was like, this is a novella and these are getting packed in here. Like, fun, I'll take it. It was just a really great time. So yeah, if you're looking for something quicker, this is great. Next, you know what? I'm gonna save to talk about Legacy of Gods like all together as one. So I'm gonna jump ahead to my reread of this month, and that was Falls Boys by Penelope Douglas. So I actually listened to this one on audio. I read this book back when it came out. I think, was it last year? maybe 2 years ago at this point when this one came out, 2022. And I read this back when that one came out. However, Pirate Girls recently released, and it is the second book in this series, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give this one a reread before I read Pirate Girls, just because I honestly didn't really remember that much that went on in this one. So this one is the second generation of the Fall Away series by Penelope Douglas. If you aren't familiar, that one is Bully Until You Rival and Falling Away, and then like the next flame. That's like a book of novellas and stuff. So this is the second generation with some of their kids. So you don't have to read that first series in order to read this one. However, I would say it's going to like enhance your reading experience. Obviously, I'm going to talk about Legacy of Gods. Again, that's second generation. You don't have to read the parents' books, but it's kind of up to you if you want to or not. However, I will say I do think you should read Falls Boys before reading Pirate Girls, because there is a mystery thread between all of these books that starts off in this one. So this one follows Hawk and Arrow. So Hawk is the son of one of the couples, the couple from Falling Away, the third book in the Fall Away series. And this is very much like good boy, bad girl vibe. So Hawk is very much like, he comes from this very prominent family in the area, and like he's just well known, and he gets good grades, he does his studies, he's responsible, he really just is like all around like a good guy. And Arrow is from the opposite side of the tracks kind of, and her living situation is not great. She's basically taking care of her siblings herself, and she feels a lot of responsibility and doesn't really have time to then like think about her own future and her own investments. However, when something ends up happening in this town, like one night, these two end up kind of getting roped into a bit of a crime together, actually, and like witnessing some things, and now they need to hide. And there is this little hideaway that Hawk knows and stays at in this town that then Arrow ends up having to stay at him with, and they are trying to not only like get this crime and like this justice kind of like brought to life, but also like trying to stay away from the corrupt police officers and like not getting arrested at the same time. And basically when they're like in that forced proximity, their romance kind of blooms. I loved this again the second time around. I really truly loved this the first time that I read it. I loved it again the second time. There's just something about the way that Penelope Douglas writes their romances that I love and eat up every single time. I fully believe the attraction. There's always burn in them. Like, it's not like slow burn, but it's not like insta love or anything. Honestly, maybe it is a little slow burn. And also, Hawk is like inexperienced in this, which is honestly so refreshing. I love his character. I love Arrow. She's an incredibly strong heroine, and just seeing everything that she goes through and the responsibility that she carries on her shoulders, and then seeing Hawk just truly trying to help her out and being like, I know that you don't need my help, but like, let me help you. I want to be, there are people that want to be there for you. Oh my God, it's so good. I loved this. I cannot wait. I started reading Pirate Girls already, and yeah, if you haven't read this series, I definitely would recommend starting it. I think it's really fun. And yeah, I think that the mystery is like gonna be really cool that's woven into the rest of them. The last book before I get into Legacy of Gods that I read is The Sinner by Chantal Tessier. This is the second book in the Lord series. However, it is the fourth one that I've read. So I have read The Ritual, Sabotage, and Carnage, and loved each and every one of those books so much. Where do I even start with this one? So this one follows Ellington and Sin. What is it? I think his name is Easton, but he goes by Sin. And so if you know anything about this series, it's basically like a secret society, the Lords. And basically it's this secret society that functions where these men, they all attend this university, Barrington University, where the first 3 years is their like initiation. They have to be celibate, and they are basically tested to the limits of like learning how to be a Lord, the ins and outs of the business. Like, you get an assignment for the Lords and you complete it. You don't ask questions. You just like do what's asked of you. And in return, you're going to be a part of the society. You're going to be like this untouchable kind of like God, man, and whatever. So your first 3 years you have to be celibate, and then in your fourth year, when you are like officially a Lord, then you are given a lady to be your lady, you know. Sin, when we first start this book, he is doing his initiation, and we see him kill a man, and that happens to be Ellington's stepdad, and she witnesses this, but he's masked, so she has no idea who he is. And basically after this encounter, she is kind of obsessed with this masked man who swooped in, killed her stepdad, and then, you know, she had a bit of a moment with right after, and he is then gone after that. And most of the story then takes place during their last year at Barrington. And she is obviously a part of this world, but she was not offered up to be a lady. However, Sin is like, she is my lady, no ifs, ands, or buts, like she is mine. It's his sister's best friend. And basically the main thing is like that you're supposed to know that he's just been obsessed with her for like years and years. I will say we don't like get to see any of that, which is where like I was really bummed at the beginning, and it kind of like took me a moment to get my bearings in it, because we just jump in just knowing that he is obsessed with her, but we don't know why. We don't see like any backstory of them when they were younger or growing up, or seeing him like having this protective edge over her. All you know is that he just has that and basically wants no other man to touch her. And Ellington, she has had a rough life. She's dealt with a lot of abuse. Obviously, with any Chantal Tessier book, check your triggers. They're all very dark. They're all very twisty. The plot twist in this one, I really enjoyed. Every Chantal Tessier book I have a great time with, because they're fun, they're spicy, there's plot twists, the pacing is like quick, like it moves fast. I will say this one has been my least favorite so far. With that said, obviously, still had a good time with it, but Carnage and Sabotage still remain supreme for me. And now seeing back at the beginning here, we see the Spade brothers. Like we don't like know their names even in this book, but obviously reading Carnage, like I know who they are. And oh my god, I was just like, oh, I want to reread Carnage again, just like seeing those little bits of them. But I will just say the relationship between these two is very much more like physical than anything else. Like even past like the other Lord's books where they all are very like physically based, I will say this one out of them all is the most just like, I feel like of a physical relationship. I didn't necessarily feel like the emotional connection between the two of them. Like by the end of the book I definitely did, and like the sacrifices that they try to make for each other. But I will just say so far it has been like, I've seen people talk about this one and that this was like the most tough one for them to get through. And I wouldn't say it was tough for me to get through by any means. But I will say it definitely is like the one, probably the darkest one out of them all so far. Also, I do think unfairly to this book, but it would have been any book, this was the first book that I read after I finished Legacy of Gods, and like all I still can think about is Legacy of Gods. So like any book was gonna struggle for me right after that, because that's what we're gonna talk about next. Let me take a sip of my coffee, because I'm gonna need to gather myself and buckle in, because I quite literally was like, can I make an entire video dedicated to Legacy of Gods? But then I'm like, what would be the point of that? But I love this series. I'm going to talk about my favorite book of the year, and no question, there's not going to be a single book I read for the rest of the year that's going to top this one. I guarantee it. I would put money on it, and I can't wait to talk about them. So buckle in, guys. Okay, so I read God of Malice back in March, loved it, didn't immediately jump into the next one, but I was like, I'm gonna get to them. And then I read God of Pain, and I didn't stop. I read these the rest of the way through. So they go God of Malice, God of Pain, God of Wrath, God of Ruin, God of Fury, and then book 6, God of War, comes out this month. I will be dropping everything, and I mean everything, to read that book the moment it is out, okay? We're gonna talk about all of these. They're all interconnected standalones, all following different couples. You could jump in and read whichever one you wanna read whenever you wanna read it. However, I would obviously advise reading them in order, because that's just how I am. I like a reading order. I mean, it's obviously not required, but I like going book by book. And you do see like overlap of like timeline and couples in them, so they do kind of like spoil it, but also like, if I tell you that this one is like Mia and what's his face, Landon, like you're gonna know then when you see them in like God of Malice that they're gonna end up together. Like, I don't know. I don't really feel like that's spoilers. They're also all dark college romances where it's basically these two universities where all of these rich, wealthy, powerful, like mafia or like old money families send their children. And all of these are second generation of the other Rena Kent books. So that is the other thing. I will say I have not read all of the parent stories. Creighton, the hero in this one, I have read his parents' trilogy. That is the first 3 books of the Royal Elite series. Those are the only ones that I've read. I have not read any of the other parents' books. I didn't feel like I missed anything. You do get some parents' POVs, like it's literally like 1 or 2 chapters normally towards the end of the book when they're like introducing the couples to like their significant others, whatever. And you do normally get like a parent chapter from that. So I think that's probably more fun if you've read the parents' books, but it's not gonna like throw you off or like confuse you in any way if you haven't read the parents. However, I will say I am gonna read Jeremy Jeremy and Annika, their brother and sister, their dad, I need him on a spiritual level. So yeah, I'm reading his trilogy. But anyways, that's kind of the basis of this. Now I'm going to go through one by one and kind of describe them individually. I had like a little fire alarm test go off. I forgot that they were doing that. So yeah, things might look a little different, but took a little break for that. Okay, back into Legacy of Gods. So now I'm going to talk about them individually. And I'm going to give you my ranking of them at the end of this video, although it will be subject to change because God of War coming out. And once I read that one, I'm sure it'll change. But first of all, God of Pain, the second book in the Legacy of God series. This one follows Creighton and Annika, and it is a grumpy sunshine, obviously all the rest of the tropes that I talked about previously. So they each go to the rivaling universities. Creighton goes to one, Annika goes to the other, and Annika is a mafia princess. And her brother and his heathens group hate the royal elites group that Creighton is not a part of, however his family members are, so he kind of gets lumped in with them. And Annika, just right off the bat, is really drawn into Creighton. He's like really quiet, broody, doesn't really say anything, and she's just like really attracted to his energy, and she is just very sunshiny. She just loves chatting, and she will chat to him even though he won't interact back with her. And basically, from the beginning, he's like, you don't want my attention. Like, I'm telling you right now, you actually don't want to catch my attention, but she does. And so while Annika obviously is very much under the protection of her brother and everything, Creighton has his own past that he has not moved past. He has a very dark past and a dark childhood, and then he was adopted by his parents, Aiden and Elsa. And since then, he's had a really great life, but he cannot get past what first happened with his family. I won't say anything of that. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but basically then it ends up being his and Annika's romance, and I ate this book up. I loved Creighton. There is something, I mean, if you've watched my channel before and like heard me talk about other books, there is something that I just love about a man who is quiet, but like when he gets talking, he says some of the most like depraved things. Like I eat that up every single time. I really loved Annika. I loved the love that she has for her brother, but then also like how she's willing to go against him for Creighton, and like how much she does love him, and just their connection felt organic. Creighton is very much a sadist, quite frankly. He gets off on pain, and Annika finds that she really likes the pain that he gives. I want to talk about, this is the thing that I'm like debating about making a whole video, because I want to be able to talk about like full spoilers and give my full thoughts on these, but I obviously don't want to do that in here to like spoil you guys. There's something that happens in this book that I was like, did that just happen? And the end of the book, oh my god. And also, okay, this is not even a spoiler scene at all. It's just like this cute ass moment between them. They're having a picnic up on the roof of the animal shelter that she volunteers at, and it starts raining, and she immediately like runs off because she's like, oh no, the rain. But he is like, hey, come out here and dance with me. And she's like, but you don't like to dance. And he's like, but I like it for you. And he's like, and then she's like, but I don't like the rain. And he's like, you like it for me. I don't get the hate that these two get, that this is like everyone's least favorite book in the series. We're gonna get to that in my rankings. This book was great. I loved this book with my entire heart and soul. I would protect these two. I love these two. I think about them every single day. Loved it. Okay, so that's book 2. Okay, that was only 3.5 minutes. I feel like that's fairly good for this series. Now, y'all, favorite book of the year. Favorite book of the year, God of Wrath, the 3rd book. Nothing's gonna pass this book. Nothing is going to pass this book this year. Okay, this is a favorite of all time now for me, quite frankly. So this one follows Jeremy and Cecily. So Jeremy is Annika's older brother, so we do see parts of him. Obviously, and we also see Cecily as well. But yeah, we see them in other books. But this one is a stalker romance. So Jeremy is obviously the heir to the mafia. Cecily is very much known as kind of like the mom of her friend group. And she just like, she's the responsible one. She's the bit of the quieter one. And like, there's just, it's kind of like the still waters run deep kind of thing with her. Kind of similar with Creighton a little bit. Like just, you know, she's not like quiet. She's not like grumpy. It's just like, she's just, you know, still waters run deep. That's the best way I can describe it. And basically she catches Jeremy's attention. And once she does that, like, he does not let go. He stalks her, quite frankly. He does. He starts following her. He starts sneaking into her bedroom. And they initially meet at the Heathen's initiation when she is sent there to spy and basically get some information on the Heathens from her crush, Landon, which we'll get to him in a minute. He's the one that just everyone hates. Basically, anything to know about Landon King, any characters in the Legacy of Gods, they probably hate him, okay? He's very disliked, but she has always had a crush on him growing up. They've been childhood childhood friends, and I mean like friends, and she's always had a crush on him, so he kind of uses that to his advantage to send her in to do some recon for him, and that's where she runs into Jeremy and they have a bit of an encounter, but she thinks that he doesn't realize that that's her. However, he does know that that's her, and then when he sees her outside of the initiation again, he's like, okay, now you've fully captured my attention and I'm not letting you go. This man, guys, I can't even express how down bad he is for her and how down bad I am for him. So also, this one has like chasing. He's like, if I catch you, you know what's gonna happen. You know, if I catch you, you know what's gonna happen. And she loves the chase. They both love the chase. He plays Russian roulette with her. He's so unhinged and in the best way possible. I literally want to say, once again, I just want to spoil the absolute shit out of this book. But then the emotional connection that these two have too. Oh my dear God, I can't get over it. I have not stopped thinking about this book. I already want to reread it again. And genuinely, like, what Jeremy recognizes in Cecily is basically something that he recognizes from another person in his life that he loves and cares about, and he kind of wants to like help heal her in the way that he kind of couldn't do for that other person. I want to spoil everything. I just want to spoil everything. I loved everything about this book. There was not a single point in this book that I didn't love. And I have zero complaints. This is a perfect book front to back. These two are absolute soulmates front to back, and I'm totally and utterly obsessed. Jeremy is a new book boyfriend, all time of mine. Cecily, love her. She's not a doormat, but she also like is fine with giving over the control to Jeremy because she finally feels safe to do that with him. Shut up. Amazing. I think you probably know where this is going in terms of my ranking at the end of this video. Now moving on to the book that I was honestly the least anticipating in this series because I truly hated Landon, and that is God of Ruin. So this is Landon and Mia's book, and Landon, let me tell you, so obviously he's the one from Cecily's friend that kind of like set her up, whatever. You see Landon all the rest of these books and you're like, this dude, quite frankly, sucks. Like, he's not likable. He doesn't seem redeemable, kind of like in the way of Damon, but honestly, I always like had more of like an inkling towards Damon from the Devil's Night series than I ever did towards Landon. Like, I don't feel like I ever really softened to Landon in any of the other books, and honestly, I didn't really soften him that much in this book, but I still ended up loving this. So Landon is basically the leader of the Royal Elites Club, which is like the secret club, but this one calls it Rivals the Heathens, whatever. He just basically loves to watch the world burn. He is a drama king. He loves setting up, he loves treating people like chess pieces, and he's like kind of a sociopath a little bit, but not as cool as Killian. Okay, Killian from God of Malice, he's a way better psychopath than Landon is. But basically Landon just kind of likes to use people as pieces in his game and like entertain himself that way, and he just kind of has no regard for people or their emotions. And Mia, our heroine, she does not speak. She had a traumatic incident as a child that you kind of learn about as you unfold throughout the book, that basically like stole her voice, and so she can talk, she just like she can't talk at this point. Like, it's not like she has like damaged vocal cords or anything, but it was a very traumatic incident and she has not spoken since, so she uses sign language however she can hear. And Landon, let me tell you that one redeeming thing, he learned sign language for her, mostly because he like wants to mess with her, he wants to keep messing with her. But basically her brother was a victim of some of Landon's absolute insanity, and she wants to get revenge for him, so she does just that. However, instead of getting revenge, she more just catches the attention of Landon, and he is not going to let her go once he's kind of like got this sick fixation on her. And what you should know, he is also an artist, he's a sculptor, and basically now Mia has become his new muse, and he hates it because he's like, why her? But also like he's like, okay, you know what, you're my new muse and I'm not gonna let you go. And basically once again just becomes utterly obsessed with her and can't kind of understand why. But Mia is a very, very strong heroine. Once again, like, she is not a doormat. She is not just gonna let him like roll all over her. She challenges him in every way, shape, and form, and she's always kind of pushing back on him, which I really love and appreciate. I can't stand when they just like let them kind of be bulldozed over. Like, obviously I love this kind of like super possessive, overly insane kind of man, but then I need the heroine to kind of like push back on that, and like she definitely does. I really enjoyed Mia. I loved their romance. I will say Landon, like, seeing him want to come around and like truly not necessarily be a better person, but learn how to like have empathy towards people, because he doesn't. He just like lacks it, because obviously he's a psychopath, like he lacks empathy. But seeing him want to learn that for Mia, I did like. I really bought into their romance. However, I do have to say Landon is still my least favorite. Like, yeah, he got me at certain points. I definitely still loved this book, but still I'm kind of like, bro, you kind of still just irk me. I kind of feel like team anti-Landon at certain points still. And then last but certainly not least, so then this one is Landon's twin brother and Mia's brother, Nikolai. So this one is Brandon Nikolai, God of Fury, book 5. This one is MM. And let me tell you, the crumbs of these characters that we got in the other books, I was like, oh, that's honestly why I was like, okay, I gotta get through God of Ruin just to get to God of Fury, because I was so excited to finally see these two. So Nikolai is also in the Russian mafia. He's like Jeremy's second. Jeremy is like his best friend. And we see Nikolai as just being like unhinged, insane, this big tatted like dude who's in the mafia and whatever, and just does whatever he wants to do whenever he wants to do it. Very unhinged. And then Brandon, he is the twin brother of Landon, and he very much just like has it together. He's Prince Charming. He does charitable work. He gets good grades. He's an artist, and very much just on the surface looks like he has it all going for him. However, once again, still waters run deep, and Brandon struggles so much. I like want to cry just thinking about Brandon. Anyways, okay, so basically you see these two characters kind of like interacting and stuff in the other books, but then finally getting to them, I couldn't have prepared myself for how much I loved this. So Nikolai, once again, he starts seeing Brandon, and he, again, just kind of gets instantly hooked. They once again meet at the Heathen's initiation when Brandon is there, and kind of from that interaction, Nikolai is like, oh, I want you. And especially knowing then that he's Landon's twin brother, he's kind of like, oh, that only makes me like more intrigued by you because of how much he hates Landon and stuff. So he's like, okay, I'm interested in you, Brandon, and seeing what makes you tick. And just because Nikolai is so like free and just does what he wants whenever he wants to do it, he's like, why is Bran like coiled up so tight? And he sees like more in him and kind of like wants to just like pick it out of him. Brandon right off the bat is like wants nothing to do with Nikolai because he's scared of what he's going to bring out in him and what he's going to see, and that if there's anyone who's going to see past the surface image that he's projecting of like being fine, it's gonna be Nikolai. So he really tries to fight it. Kitties, what are you doing? Anyways, he really tries to fight that. Basically, Nikolai is like a dog with a bone, and he's not going to leave Bran alone once again until he kind of unravels everything that Bran is. Now, let me tell you, obviously with all of these books, you should check your triggers. I will say with this one specifically deals with mental health really heavily, so I would obviously, but a lot of them do as well, like even God of Wrath does, but I would just say really check your triggers before going into this one. But that's what I loved about this story so much. I loved Brandon's character. I love Nikolai's character too, don't get me wrong. Like I love like a golden retriever, absolutely unhinged, insane man. But like sometimes I was like, sir, stop talking about, he like personified a certain part of himself. And I'm like, stop it. Nikolai, stop it. But Bran, oh my God, he needs protection at all costs. And I would burn the world down for him. I would like join Nikolai in the fight to just like protect Bran with everything. These two, their connection was just beautiful, insane. I loved it. The plot twist at the end, or not really like the twist, I guess, but like the thing that happened at the end, oh my God, my jaw was like on the floor. I wanted to cry. It was so good. I love everything about this book except Nikolai constantly talking about that certain part of himself. I'm like, stop it. Otherwise, I loved everything else about this book. And yeah, so now I'm going to get into my ranking of them. And like I said, this is before God of War has come out. So subject to change when God of War is out. But and when I am ranking these, I am ranking them as I have given all of these books 5 stars. So like, it's not like I'm dissing one when I'm putting it at the bottom. It still got 5 stars, but it just is my least favorite of pure perfection in my head. And also you might be like, why are you taking this much time to talk about a series? Because I'm so obsessed with it and I never want to read it. And I just truly have not been like this obsessed with a series. I think probably, I haven't binge read a series probably back since I read the Kimura Chronicles in like 2021. So it has been years since I felt like this invested in a series. So just let me have my moment, okay? At number 5 is God of Ruin. Like I said, loved it, but Lan is just my least favorite hero. I really liked Mia and I loved what he did for her and like the love that he had for her, but he's just like leaps and about my least favorite. Like, sorry Landon, but also like not that sorry. Next up, controversial, God of Malice. Here's the thing, Killian has top 3 most interesting internal monologues I've ever read. I am so intrigued by this man. I love the way that he processes things. I love the way that he processes people and emotions and situations. However, I will say Glendon, like, she didn't really give me much, okay? She's like not my, she's actually probably my least favorite heroine of them all, so that's kind of like why they're down at the bottom, just because even though he was super fascinating, I found her like not as interesting. So God of Malice at number 3, or at number 4. Then at number 3, it does pain me to do it because I love these two with my entire heart. These top 3, honestly, like, I love them all across the board so equally, but it does have to, I want to put God of Pain at number 2, but like, I can't. Okay, anyways, God of Pain is number 3. I'm so obsessed with these two. I'm so obsessed with them. And honestly, these two should really be tied for number 2 because here's the thing, like, I love this book overall and as a whole, but truly, like, Bran is what, like, pulled this book, like, up to number 2 for me, because honestly, God of Fury would potentially be number 3. Like, these two could kind of go back and forth, depending on what mood I'm feeling what day. The 2 and 3 interchangeable. And then, as no surprise, God of Wrath is number 1. Number 1 in my heart. Number 3 in the series. It's something about the third book in a series, y'all. The third book in the series is always, like, supreme. I was talking to Zay about this the other day because she is reading the Hollowed Boys series or whatever by Monty J, and I think she was talking about how, like, the third book she was most anticipating and, like, thought it was going to be her favorite. And I'm like, the third book is just, like, supreme. Savage Lover from Sophie Lark, third book, Brutal Birthright. Kill Switch, Penelope Douglas. Falling Away, Penelope Douglas. Twisted Pride, Cora Riley, Bound by Hatred, Cora Riley. Like, the third book is just supreme in series, and that's how I feel with God of Wrath. So anyways, that is all of the books. I don't know how long this footage is going to have been of me talking about this series, but I just really needed to talk about it and let it have its moment. That is it for today's video. So on Friday, I think I'm going to have the hottest books that I have read this year so far. I think that's going to be my video Friday. And then, yeah, I don't know, kind of, I do actually have my June mapped out, I think, pretty much with videos, but I think that's what's coming on Friday. So anyways, that is it for today's video, and I will see you when I see ya.